bring in Tara Dublin, who does indeed rock, and is waiting in the wings. Um, and I'm sure we'll have a thing or two to say about a thing or two. Three, two, one. There she is.
Nah.
Check. Yeah, there she is. Hi.
Hi, I don't have any strong opinions. I don't know what you're talking about.
Good woman. You've learned a lot from the
Hi.
Turning Points USA
Hi.
crowd, right? Good for you.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes,
Hi. Well, it's
broodmare for
been
the
another
state. Right. Get in
hi.
line. Right.
The leader is good. The leader is right.
Do you like my new
Yeah,
counter, by the way? My little,
I love that. I think
yeah.
that's excellent. And I think that everybody should now be in the process of reminding everyone else
Mm-hmm.
that one of Charlie Kirk's final wishes was to see the fully
That's
unredacted
right.
Epstein files
That's why I put it
released.
up there in
There,
honor of Charlie. There you go.
do it. Hashtag do it for Charlie.
Right.
Like do it for Johnny from The Outsiders. We're doing it for
Mm-hmm.
Charlie. Do it for Charlie. I never agreed with Charlie Kirk about anything except releasing the Epstein files, and that's enough for me. That's enough
Mm-hmm.
common ground right there.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
Yeah,
um,
there's a point where you, I think, have to
yeah,
put a pin in something and just go, okay, well, I know, I hate ignominy. We all fight about this. But you and I agree on this. Okay, cool. Point. Let's just do
exactly.
that. We're both good.
Lean
That's
into
good. Let's
that.
do that. Point.
So, yeah.
Let's
So,
go have a bite.
hi
How about we all?
everybody.
We'll take a break and we'll hit it all
Hi.
good on Monday, right?
Hi. Everybody in the chat. Hi, everybody in the chat. Let me just bring everybody. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping from last Monday. So, first of all, the sparklers are the best people. And I
Yes.
appreciate you all so very much because if you weren't here last Monday, I was angry and frustrated, and some feelings came out of me, which is fine. I wasn't
Yeah.
upset in that nobody hurt my feelings. I was just mad and frustrated. And that's what I look
Mm-hmm.
like and sound like when I'm mad and frustrated. And I think it's fine to let people see your humanity from time to time. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, things got so much more interesting and better as soon as we signed off last Monday. Because one thing I wrote, I have my notes, I wrote them all down so I could just like knock them out like bullet points. On Monday, as almost immediately after we were done, I found out that on Sunday, Fox News Sunday, last Sunday, so the 14th, they quietly
Mm-hmm.
confirmed Donald Trump's signature on the Epstein letter. Nobody knows this. Nobody
Right.
knows this because what did we talk about all last week? Jimmy
Yes.
Kimmel. Nobody's talking about the Fox thing, and it's killing me because that should be the biggest story. Now, we've laid Charlie Kirk to rest, hopefully, and if you're going to keep dancing on his corpse, please remember that he wanted the full Epstein files released. So that and over this last week, I saw both the best and worst of humanity, clearly, because there was the reporting of the texts that no one believed were real, that I don't care if you don't believe them, they were real. The tweets that I got about them were worse. But every other social media that I posted the harassment on about, everyone else had a normal human reaction, which is, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Is there anything that you need? What can I do for you? People I hadn't heard from in a long time had seen some of the stuff, like this guy I used to like do stuff with like a decade ago was like, hey, you still have my number, right? If you need anything. And I'm like, no, I don't, but thank you. Anyway, but finding out that Fox confirmed the signature on the letter, I think, is a major development and a good talking point for us,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it keeps getting squashed and we have to keep making that rise to the top. So that was a good thing that helped me. On Tuesday on the Tara show, we had this guy, Dr. Jeff Grammer, who's a psychiatrist and former military, who we had booked before the Charlie Kirk thing happened. He would be a great guest for your show
Mm-hmm.
because as former military psychiatrist, he specializes in like PTSD, but he also is talking about this, the trauma around Charlie Kirk and the way they behave and all of that. So talking to him was really helpful at this particular time, and he was incredibly generous, and he spent time with both Devlin and me off the air when we finished because she's a wonderful human being also, as you know, and very
Mm-hmm.
concerned about me. And one of the things that she was very pushy in that she was like, you got to change your phone number, Dublin. You can't let them have them
Mm-hmm.
do that. And I'm like, no, they don't get to do that. I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to move. I can't afford to move. I can't afford anything, but I'm not getting a new phone number. I'm not deleting my social media. I'm not doing the things they want me to do. And Dr. Jeff said, you seem to have very strong boundaries and you don't seem to be making hasty, impulsive decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And you are doing what's authentic and right for you. Continue doing that and you will be able to get through this. And I was like, awesome. On Wednesday, I found out the funniest thing that made me so happy because one of
Mm-hmm.
the talking points that they have been using with the shooter, you'll recall, who was one person named Tyler Robinson. One of their many myriad talking points that they're trying to make stick was that he got radicalized in college. Don't send your kids to college.
Right.
College will turn your kids into a liberal transgender person or whatever. And I was like, but he went to a technical college with the word Dixie in it. That doesn't sound like a liberal enclave to me. But
Mm-hmm.
what I found out on Wednesday while I was still being trolled over my text, there's a representative in Ohio, Republican MAGA, real shitbag, real shitbag. Turns out I went to college with him at Emerson College in Boston. And if you don't know one thing about Emerson College, let me tell you, it is
Hmm.
a major liberal arts college,
Sure.
huge liberal arts, major. Henry Winkler went there. David Cross went there. Jennifer Coolidge went there.
Right.
Jay Leno went there. I went there for 2 years and then I had a transfer. But Mike Rulli from Ohio, Representative Mike Rulli,
Yeah.
Rulli, sophomore year, 1988, lived in the dorm across the street from mine, had a huge crush on my roommate, was real hard, going hard for my roommate, and brought a friend of his into town. And the four of us drove to Providence, Rhode Island to see the Ramones at the Living Room. I will never forget this night because I almost died because Mike Rulli thought it would be super funny to push little me into the mosh pit. And that was not funny, Mike Rulli. But
Mm.
what I think is hilarious is now I can say, I wonder how your liberal arts education at Emerson College radicalized you into becoming a MAGA dick. Still no answer. And I called his
Mm-hmm.
office on Friday, just for shits and giggles, because his tweets are bad, like they're
Right.
red meat, MAGA, shitbags, shitty stuff with the fake Christian stuff thrown in for good measure.
Sure. Sure.
And sure. And I was told, I talked to them, I talked to the very scared sounding young lady who answered. She was like, yeah, I was like, well, is your comms director available? Because that's usually how this goes. I talk to the
Mm-hmm.
comms director, I get their email, and then I can ask all the questions. And I know that's not your job to answer anyway. And she comes back a few minutes later. She goes, yeah, I'm going to take your information and my comms director is going to get back to you. I was like, really? You can't just give me his email? And she's like, no, he's going to reach out to you. Does anyone want to put a wager on when that's going to happen? Because it
Right.
hasn't happened yet. Okay, Thursday, I'm going through the week as quickly as Thursday. So what I did was, by the way, since Monday,
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to an FBI agent on Monday from my local field office, by the way, going back. After you and I were
Right.
done, I
Yep.
spoke to a local FBI agent and she was like, "Okay, yes, this is real. We're going to move this case forward to national." And I was like, "Great. Under Cash Patel, I don't expect to hear anything." On Thursday during the Tara show, I get this call from a San Juan, Puerto Rico phone number, and if you think I'm picking up a phone number, I don't know, you're crazy. But it turns out that the person who left me a voicemail actually was an FBI agent in the San Juan, Puerto Rico office. And I spent a nice time speaking with her, and she was wonderful. And now
Right.
there's a real case. There's a real case,
Great.
and I have a direct line, and she was great. I hope, and I said to her at the end of it, I was like, this has been amazing, and thank you so much for hearing me and honoring me, and thank you for all of this help and this phone number that I can use. But I hope I never have to speak to you ever again. And she was like, same. But she said, you're doing everything right and you're keeping great notes. Awesome. Great. Keep going. Do what you're doing.
Right.
Awesome. Right? Right.
Yep.
On the same day, I also spoke with someone in my Senator Ron Wyden's office because she heard what happened to me. And she called the FBI to make sure that they were aware that one of Ron Wyden's constituents was being harassed. And then I talked to her. She's like, if you talk to the FBI, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm ahead of you there. And so I thought that was amazing that someone in my senator's office, this is why Democrats are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
She went the extra mile for someone she does not know. So this is someone who's been working for Ron Wyden for 30 years. 30
Yeah.
years she's been working for him. So that tells you something too, because I don't know if anybody works for Republicans for that long. On the same day, I also talked to somebody in Ro Khanna's office. I was very busy on Thursday. And I spent a half an hour talking about forwarding the Democratic messaging, which is something that we talk about so much because we don't have a unifying message. We don't really have a unifying leader. I said we need a Democratic press secretary. He loved that idea. And he also loved the idea because Ro Khanna sits on House Oversight. That would be a great idea for a bunch of us liberal influencers to testify before House Oversight and show them the kinds of texts that we got around Charlie Kirk and all of this. So maybe we can start dissipating the temperature on this
Mm-hmm.
national conversation. Because again, liberals had nothing to do with him being shot. All of this great stuff is happening, right? Boom, 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 boom. Friday, my iPhone broke. My
Oh dear.
iPhone broke, and a piece of thing, a piece of thing broke off in the here. And friends, I can't afford a new iPhone, but I had to get a new iPhone. So it was like this week went woo, 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 woo.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's scary. This is what I call scary week of the month when you don't know if you're gonna make it to rent.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk about also, and then I'll give you time to talk because it's your show. I want to talk about supporting the independent media because what we're going to be seeing going forward now that the Charlie Kirk thing has had its very lengthy news cycle, and I think there's more conversations to have around it. The way the mainstream media has handled this is a disgrace. The way
Right.
they capitulate and the way they behave, and the way
Mm-hmm.
Trump has been allowed to get away with bullying them for 10 years. I'm done watching that happen. And I wrote a tweet earlier, like a lengthy one, like I tagged John Carl and I tagged Yamish and I don't know if I tagged him, but I think I tagged Peter Ducey. Like, we're done. I'm
Mm-hmm.
done watching him do that to you. I'm done because you set the standard for how people are supposed to behave when they react to him. You're watching the press. If the press seems scared, then other people will seem scared. You shouldn't be scared of him.
Right.
Ask him the question. He doesn't answer the question, the next person answers the question. He attacks someone, the next person stands with them and say, well, I would like the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep pushing. Then if he doesn't answer the question, and he walks away, then you fucking let him walk away like the baby he is. You stand together as one.
Mm-hmm.
One falls, you all fall. One is bullied, you're all bullied. One gets singled out, you're all singled out. You stand together as one. Because what do we know about bullies, Hal? They are cowards at heart.
Right.
And when they are challenged, they fold like paper. Unfortunately, this media started giving him ground in 2015. They ceded inches, and now he's taking our democracy. So, collectively, our responsibility, mine, yours, everyone on Political Voices, everyone who does what we do, we need to be screaming about truth. And we also need to be protecting our partners in the mainstream media and figure out a way that we combine our efforts to make sure the truth starts prevailing the loudest now. Because
Mm-hmm.
they don't are what I have learned repeatedly in talking to you, in talking to our friend John Fugelsang, and just listening and paying attention. MAGA never cares about the truth. They care about this cult of identity and that this matters to them. And I learned this also talking to Dr. Jeff Grammer on Tuesday. The red hat signifying I belong, we are together. It's about feelings, not facts. And it always has been with them. It's always about feelings of belonging, those being mirrored back by Trump rather than politics.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I heard in all of this, it was such a great quote, is that MAGA will only stop believing the lie when it hurts them more than it serves them, which I thought was a really interesting
Mm-hmm.
way to frame
Yeah.
it,
I mean,
because
yeah.
that's true, right? So in all of that I just said, what I'm asking for in this week, because next week we all have to pay rent, we all are facing the unknown at the beginning of a week and whatever, $5, $10 to your favorite independent media person, me, Devlin, the Political Voices Network, Hal, Fugel, like
Mm-hmm.
all of us. We are not being paid by some humongous think tank.
Right.
I'm not getting paid $8,000 a month.
No.
We don't know. I don't get what I don't. It is scraping the pennies from Substack, from the
Mm-hmm.
meager amount that I'm getting paid for what I do is not enough. And we should be paid so much more, like teachers and nurses. Maybe not that much, but we
Hmm.
don't have that. Okay. What we have is a great audience of wonderfully invested people who care so much about our First Amendment and our democracy. The only way we move the needle at all is if we somehow figure out how to unify. But we can't do that unless we are all able to keep doing this. They don't want us to continue to tell the truth. We have to. So it's, again, I know I constantly ask for money. It's important. Someone in the chat said that. You know, don't give it to me. Give it to Political Voices Network. I'll figure out a way. I always do. But what I'm saying is, Starbucks doesn't need your $7 for a pumpkin spice latte today. Kick it down to someone who does. Kick it down to someone in the independent
Sure.
media who's never lied to
That's
you, who's never grifted from you, who's never switched sides like Lindy Lee, who doesn't take Russian blood money to shill propaganda, who doesn't make hundreds of thousands of dollars a week because she's suppressed on Twitter or whatever. Right now, you can read my Substack for free, but if you want
Yep.
to respond, you have to buy a subscription at the lowest level. And I do that to protect myself. It gives me one place on the internet
Sure.
where MAGA can't troll
Well,
me.
it's interesting because like
So,
on my end of things, if you I could set my chat rooms on all these sites to either subscriber or member only kind of things, and I never have and I won't, because
right,
the purpose is for the conversation we're having to reach as many people as possible, and the people who support this do that so that that happens, not so that they
right.
can pay for a secret paywall that they can, I'll tell you all the good stuff behind the scenes, which is just like,
I don't
that's
like
not
that.
that's not politics. That's not how you do a social movement. It's not how you help the
No,
maximum amount of people.
no.
That's just a cult of personality.
Right.
So I would argue that the more like the more outflow you get from somebody on our side that isn't supported. Yes, Patreons assemble. Thank you guys so much, especially because they're like the literally the foundation of everything that I'm able to do on the channel and all that
Right.
I'm able to build on it. But that having the more people are like, I'm just putting everything out there. I don't have a behind the scenes thing. I don't have a members only chat, or I don't, as much as
Right.
most people when they have a Patreon or something, have a secret, you know, inside scoop something or other. I don't do that
Yeah.
because that's not the point. The point is that we're
Right.
all having this conversation, as freely and fully as we possibly can out in the
Right.
open. And the people who do pay for it
Absolutely.
are supporting the people who can't. Most of all,
Right.
what I believe the people who support channels like ours do is that they support the ability for people that don't have the resources. They might have the internet, but they don't have the money to super chat or do a Patreon thing or any of that kind
Right.
of stuff, that wouldn't get to see it otherwise. That's what they're
Right.
supporting, not secret conversation behind the scenes,
Sure.
TYT. So, anyways, let's move on to the conversations
There is
of the
also,
day, though.
yes,
Yeah.
there is one last thing I'd like to, it is free to share our links with
Yes.
your friends on your socials. Hey, I heard Tara Dublin say this thing on the House Spark show. Here's the link. And
Hmm.
then they can decide for themselves what they want to do after that. You can share my Substack link. You can share the link to my book at taradublinrocks.com. I don't want to get something for nothing. I
Hmm.
don't want you to just, I'm not asking for a handout. I give you something in return for your investment of $5 or whatever. So, but sharing is caring, and the freedom and
Hmm.
the fact that you can share a link for free is also a humongous part of it. And especially when, someone is suppressed on one social media platform, but is doing okay on others. So
Hmm.
anyway, to the news of the day, we have gone through all of this. Happy rapture to those who celebrate.
Did it happen again without me? Then
I think it's happening supposedly today, tomorrow, or Wednesday, but that's really clashing with Rosh Hashanah, coincidentally. So maybe they could put a pin in that until
sure.
Thursday.
Yeah. Well, I think the big story of the day is, and I have not seen them officially announce this quite yet, is that
Ooh,
Trump is doing this autism. They figured out
I
autism,
saw that
and it's
live.
and it's vaccines. Apparently, I don't know if you know this, but vaccines actually it's not. Oh wait, yeah, sorry, it's not. That was all wrong. Scuttle that.
It's not, it's Tylenol.
It's acetaminophen during pregnancy and vitamin
No,
deficiency, and a
no, it
combination of
isn't.
those two things.
No, it isn't.
And right. So, and again, you got to love a war of statistics. But at the very least,
Right?
I think the biggest takeaway from this is that it ain't vaccines. With all the
No.
RFK Jr. shit and all the stuff that we've been through, the announcement that they are allegedly going to make today is that it
Mhm.
has nothing at all to do with vaccines. After the RFK
Weird.
Jr. promised everyone that he was going to go in there and shed light on it, and he was going to bring in all these vaccine skeptics, and he
Oh
filled
my
like
God.
the NIH boards and the CDC boards with vaccine
Mhm.
skeptics and all this kind of shit, because not because they don't work or because they cause, or it's just big pharma making money. It's not because of that, but because they cause autism. That autism is on the rise because of the number of vaccines, because the rise in vaccines and the rise of autism, correlates but does not have an attached causality because time moves forward and we're recognizing what we call autism these days. We had a myriad of different names for in terms of retarded or mentally challenged or any myriad of things from dyslexic to deaf.
Man.
Kids just were written off, and so we didn't have a title for it. Then the same way that when he was a kid, he's like, there weren't all these chronic disease people when I was a kid because they fucking died. But now
That's
they're going
right.
to apparently attach it to the use of acetaminophen during pregnancies. And you know what's great about this? You know what's really great about this? Is that they will be able to say this. A large portion of women will switch, to ibuprofen from acetaminophen during the pregnancy
Hmm.
cycle. It won't affect shit, but it'll be 5 to 10 years before the jury's back in, and the
Right.
numbers and they will categorically assume that the numbers are fading when they aren't, and so they won't have to answer to it. You can literally just say this and and move on and go, yeah, we fixed it, just don't take acetaminophen during your pregnancy and we're done. And
It's so dumb. It's just, and then tomorrow it's what? Don't eat gummy bears during pregnancy because the sugar high will make them what? Just so stupid.
no, no,
This is
this is going to
another
be it. I'm telling
distraction.
you. Here's the
This
thing
is
though, there
another
no
distraction.
no, but this is going to be the end of it because it ain't vaccine, so they can't keep going back. This is the problem when you,
You have to
again, I was
hold
talking
them
about
to
this with
this,
Cliff,
right?
was like, yes, when you paint the solution as being very cut and dry and very easy to solve, and that the problem's an extraordinary elephant in the room that nobody is talking about. And a great example of that is 35. I heard this requoted again. I think it was like Gavin McGinnis or one of these dudes who, like the Proud Boys guys, saying it isn't that we have all a bunch of illegals. It's that we have 35 million in the country. Like, we fucking don't. We've got 10.3 at last count, and that's a conservative number on the high side. It is so fucking lazy. And the problem that Trump has is that in promising that there are 35 million lunatic, murderer, rapist, asylum escaping Hannibal Lecters running around, is that they're really fucking hard to find. And you end up rounding up people who are just in the middle of roofing, and that's
Yeah.
not going to satisfy the maggots that were told that there are 35 million lunatics running around that can barely, that are, that run around with butcher knives with their pants on backwards, down the streets because they were poured into the country by the Venezuelan government. That's a big, again, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that's fucking huge. That's like 35, like the 25 million psychopaths were added to the country, and then all of them managed. Maybe it's America's that amazing, is that they all came up here and got roofing jobs all of a sudden. Maybe they were only insane. Maybe they were allergic to something in Guatemala. Maybe it was
The
the
roof.
local shrubbery made them insane, and up here it doesn't grow. So it is so fucking dense that they
This is
can't escape it.
no, and so if I'm a member of the press and I'm standing in front of him yelling this bullshit, he's yelling this bullshit. The responsibility of the press is to say, people have been taking Tylenol for decades and we've never heard this before. And you've been blaming vaccines for all of this time. And now
Hmm.
you're turning this into something else. How can we trust this when you were blaming vaccines? How can we trust this when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not a doctor? And
Right.
so, and like basically no one at the CDC is a doctor right now. Why should anyone listen to anything that comes from this administration when this administration lies to us and continues to, make us less safe and less healthy every second they remain in office? That's the
Hmm.
question that the press should ask. Is what should be said on camera. Not They should not let him go through this whole big thing that is a lie. And unfortunately, this lie, the vaccine community, I'm be curious to see the anti-vax community how they react to this, because if
Hmm.
they've been fed this anti-vax lie for so long, are they supposed to be anti-acetaminophen now? Like what are they going to do with this
Here's
new information?
wait for it. Wait for it. The big change is that we've been getting all of our acetaminophen made in China, and now we've got to make it here. Right. And so I don't know why we're making it at all. Why don't you just come up with a different thing? Okay, so there are two things that are supposed to come out about this. This is the what a part of the announcement that they're going to make is that there's a low levels of folate in the during pregnancy, they recommend folinic acid for kids with
Yes.
kids
Folic
with
acid is what, yeah.
autism.
Women
Yeah,
are encouraged to take folic acid during pregnancy. I
right,
took folic
because
acid
of
during
spina
pregnancy.
to prevent spina bifida and all kinds
Spina
of other
bifida.
stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the problem is more than likely spina bifida and other things are going up because the I don't know, the RFK Jr. hippie chick crowd are doing like taking charcoal tablets and shit like that and just like trying all these weird YouTube remedies during their pregnancy, and
Right.
they're denying what
Right.
actually fucking works. And again, this goes back
Right.
to one of the reasons we had a rise in skin cancer in this country and why it leveled out after a little while was a shift from dairy to dairy replacement that happened hugely during the 90s and early 2000s. And there's
Yep.
nothing wrong with going from dairy to oat milk or dairy to silk or all that, but there was a long storied history of augmenting milk, adding vitamin D and vitamin A to milk as a source, because a long time ago scientists realized everybody's short of it, especially if you live in the northern or northeastern part of the countries during certain parts of the year, or you live in fucking Seattle. You're not going to have enough vitamin D because your body makes it, so you got to supplement it. The easiest way to do that is in milk. It was a standard thing. You couldn't inject eggs at the time. You couldn't create eggs with a lot of vitamin D in them, which you now can. You couldn't add it to other
Right.
stuff. The easiest thing to add it to was milk. So they did. And then when people switched from one to the other, they started drinking silk. It didn't have vitamin D or vitamin A added to it because people were, I don't know, because all sorts of, it didn't sound organic or some shit. And ultimately, this is when you run into people who are like, "Oh my God, this has got tocopherol in it," and you're like, "Asshole, that's vitamin E," and you're like, "Oh, okay, sorry." That there was so much of that in the fucking '90s. It was just dumb. But
Yeah.
but then they eventually started adding it, and if you'll notice, all of like silk and all these other oat milks and stuff are now they've got vitamin D and vitamin A added to them, and in some cases more stuff, right? So, yeah, vitamin D doesn't exist in Seattle. It explains so much. Believe me, if there
I
was more
mean,
vitamin D, you wouldn't have had grunge. I'm just telling you. Grunge is what happens in a human body that can play guitar really well, but doesn't have enough vitamin
in the
D.
dark.
In
In
the
the
dark,
dark,
right?
which is what happens in Portland too, by the
That's
way. I
right.
mean,
That's
we
right.
we had an amazing music and art scene here because most of the great things that are created have to be
Hmm.
created indoors
And then you got jacked
when the
up
rain
weed, and
comes.
everybody got paranoid because they didn't change their dose, and they smoked the same amount of weed they did from before, but now they got higher THC, and they can't fucking handle it, so they're all little mini Joe Rogans running around who can't fucking handle their THC. And they're into the
Amateurs,
lesson. Fucking
amateurs,
amateurs.
fucking
Um,
amateurs.
all right, so, but
So, what about the
what they're going
other
to put
story that's
forward.
happening at the same time as this one, though? I
Hmm.
know what they're gonna put forward. What they're gonna put forward is a bunch of lying bullshit things so that more people in red states die. People in blue states are not gonna believe this bullshit about the acetaminophen. They're not. We're not. We're not going to because we're smart, we're educated,
Well,
and
wait, hold
also
on a
our
second,
states
though.
are taking care
I'm
of
going to,
this.
for the record, though, the
Yeah.
there is going to be an announcement from I guess the American Society of Pediatrics, and they're at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services officials. It will be the official language of recommendations, just like when we switched the MDA to the RDA. Remember, we used to have minimum daily allowance, but that sounds like too little, so
Yeah.
they like RDA now. We've got 100% of the
Recommended.
recommended daily allowance, which sounds like more, but it isn't. It's the same as the minimum daily allowance, but that minimum sounds depressing. So, right. So
Mhm.
they're going to make this officially the the current science. This is going to be
That's
announced as the current
bullshit.
science.
That's bullshit. What and you know what? Someone in the chat saw this. I saw this go by real quick.
Hmm.
That they don't want women to take any sort of pain relief during pregnancy because they want women to be in pain. They want women to suffer. And it's the cruelty that's the point. There's nothing. I mean, they've been using acetaminophen forever to treat mild pain. There's never, I mean, this is horrific. This is going to cause a panic in the United States for no reason except to instill fear.
Well, and
And
also make women
it
blame
doesn't make
themselves
sense.
for right for like like we're at thalidomide again all over again.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about, the flipper babies. This
Mm-hmm.
is, yeah, when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to stuff like this, every drug comes with a warning label, right? That's something that the FDA made sure happened. That, like, this could happen. There are risks. That's all you need to do. You don't have to come out and try to scare the entire population of the United States and say,
Mm-hmm.
acetaminophen causes autism. No, it fucking does not. We don't know what causes it, okay? We don't. We may never. It's just someone's biological makeup. It's just something that happens. The DNA and the genetics and whatever, the soup that creates us all. We're all biological experiments, okay?
Yeah, except
That's
okay, hold
just
on one
what
second.
happens.
Wait, no, no.
You
I
can't,
look. There may be an environmental factor in some of these cases, in which case you would want to limit those kind of things. They're taking advantage of that fact, but the fact that they're misusing that information or
yeah,
diluting it doesn't mean that that's not a reality. And if there was something caused it,
no,
one of the reasons you don't want them chasing down vaccines is because you would be ignoring the real cause of it. And believe me, that's what
right.
the conversation in MAGA world is going to be. When they come out and say, don't take Tylenol during your pregnancy unless you have a fever, which is what they're going to recommend, because it's it's an antifebrile as opposed to a pain reliever. In that regard, you can take
Right.
ibuprofen as a pain reliever, and then
Hmm.
they'll women will take that up, and then the numbers might not change and whatever. The point is,
Right.
they are they're going to make this case or whatever as, and they're going to be in more deep shit with MAGA than if they'd have come out and said we knew it was vaccines and we've said it, and but they can't. You know why? Because if even if they wanted to say it was vaccines, even if they still there's a bunch of dipshits on his board that says this, the problem they have right now is sort of to your point is that you don't have a bunch of Democrats dying of fucking measles. You don't have a lot of blue state kids dying of these diseases. You got red state kids who are going to die. And they're all looking at this. All the senators, all the House members, who, no matter how much they beat the fucking drum about vaccine bullshit and government control and all that kind of nonsense, what they looked at is that the deaths in COVID were not evenly spaced. In the very beginning, it was a mass kill off of people who were impoverished or in highly dense areas. But after a while, when a vaccine became available, or people were able to limit their symptoms by getting vaccinated and not going into the hospital for long periods of time and not dying and not getting worse, red states is where the death rate went through the roof because it wasn't the disease that killed them, it was the ignorance about the vaccine. And so what these Republicans are looking at is, if anything, whether acetaminophen can be tied to it or not is immaterial to the general maggotry who have bought into this anti-vaccine thing that is killing
Right.
off or has the potential to kill off a generation of Republican voters. Whether
Yeah.
we
And
what
it makes no sense.
that's why I think they want to come out and say it's anything. I would argue anything but vaccines. They want to come out and because even if they went, it's this vaccine, one in particular one. We found the pertussis vaccine
Right.
had mercury in it for 10 years and blah, blah, blah. They went that storyline, which it doesn't and whatever.
Right.
But they wanted to go that way. The problem is the rest of the country would go, oh, is there an alternate to that vaccine? Because I still want my kid vaccinated against pertussis. And they'd go, yes, there's a secondary one, or the mRNAs are better. Just like the Johnson and Johnson vaccine is the one that had heart palpitations. And that was a traditional vaccine that used dead versions of the
Right.
virus, old fashioned. None of the mRNA vaccines had that problem, but they thought it's all this new technology that's causing all the heart problems. It wasn't at all. And as a matter of fact, it was actually COVID that was causing the heart problems. It's just that your body reacts, and especially young males in a certain window of testosterone, your heart development is such that you will
Hmm.
react to what's in the dead vaccine or the dead virus that's in the vaccine, or the live virus still makes triggers the inflammation. That's what they realized. So it was effectively just like getting COVID for them in that regard. In the same way that some people will
Mhm.
get feverish after they get a vaccine. They'll get symptoms
Right.
of it without the actual disease. So that's a standard vaccination problem. Nobody made that distinction. Like, listen to maggots talk about vaccines, and they will all jump on mRNA is this fantastical, super
Mhm.
scientific, genetically modifying shit. It's got RNA in it. Oh my dear God. And that's what's causing heart attacks in young people. Like, listen to them talk about it. When, in
They're
fact,
crazy.
it was not the mRNA vaccines that were causing the like tachycardia symptoms and the pericardial like swelling or the in young men. It was the
Right.
specifically the Johnson and Johnson old school vax. Okay, so if you and I heard that one of the vaccines that had been given was maybe linked to autism and they didn't know about it and then they fixed it and whatever, there'd be lawsuits against the company that made it if they knew and that kind of stuff. But everybody would
Right.
still go, my kid needs a whooping cough vaccine, so I'll use the
Right.
other one that didn't cause it, that isn't tracked to this. That's
Right.
not going to be the maggot response. Maggots are going to go, I knew it, they're trying to kill us all, fuck it. And they're going to
Yeah.
ignore, they're going to blame, they're going to say, I don't believe, I think they're all that way. They will lump them
Of
all together
course.
in the same way they lump together the mRNA vaccines and the Johnson and Johnson stuff because it's just vaccine bad. Like they're low.
Yeah.
Trump loves the poorly educated, and he is going to love them into an early grave.
Which they don't get no matter what you say to them, which is again one of what, like
Mm-hmm.
I said earlier, they're gonna stay there until the lie no longer provides the comfort that it used to,
Mm-hmm.
because it's hurt them in some way. When these lies have a body count, his lies have a body count, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And no, and it's intentional and it's dangerous and it's they we're talking about the same people who are letting him lie to them about the Epstein files because it feels safe and it feels comfortable, and
Right.
to have to go outside anything that because apparently the worst thing that you can be if you're a MAGA is wrong on the internet. If you're wrong on the internet, then people see you being wrong, then you have to
Mm-hmm.
walk it back, then you have to say you were wrong, and oh my god, if I so they're wrong about that, they're wrong about the vaccines, now they say it's this. What else have they been wrong about? What else have they been lying to
Mm-hmm.
you about? And it's these people who have no natural curiosity are just taking this and eating it because dear leader says so. The leader is good, the leader is right with no question, no challenge. But and it's all right in front of them. And yet there's no natural curiosity. So they don't question. They don't say,
Mm-hmm.
well, you said this, but now you're saying this. You said
Mm-hmm.
the rapture was coming 4 years ago and it never came. Are you sure it's coming the day after tomorrow? Like there's no natural curiosity. It's all about that cult of identity politics. And so if these are the same people that let Donald Trump continue to move the goalposts of lies with the Epstein files, it doesn't surprise me that they will allow this to also become. And then if we ask them, well, you said this about vaccines, they're like, well, now we know it was actually this. So again, like we have to be the ones that prevail with the truth as much as possible and be louder than this and, say to people, that the fuck your feelings, do your own research crowd is really upset and they never do their own research.
Right.
So that's why we have to stay where the truth lives.
Well, and also, here's the other thing too. There is nothing wrong with actively searching for a cause for autism and a cure for autism. Zero. There is nothing wrong with that. And the problem is that because like I guess people on our side don't feel comfortable having that conversation, or because it's been seized by lunatics, we cede that
Hmm.
ground to the worst among us, leaving people
Right.
to have their lives upended and destroyed, to the point where, by the way, that on the right, the prevailing story right now is that transgender people are just autistic. That's just that all of them can be described as autistic. Period. It is a
Oh
factor, a
my
secondary
God.
factor of autism because because some autistic children through like seeing something become fixated on just about anything, and in some
Right.
cases they get fixated via Tumblr and the internet believing that they are transgender when they are not, and that would arguably be the crowd of detransitioners we're seeing right now that are not
Hmm.
trans but may have believed they were, because nobody wanted to have the conversation about the depth of reality in this area because we didn't want to offend someone, or we didn't want to disenfranchise someone, or we felt threatened by the idea on our own side to not have this fucking conversation. And so what did we do? By not having the difficult parts of this conversation, we left these people in the hands of Donald Trump.
Right.
We ceded the entire conversation. They did. That's
Right.
what happened. That's what happens when we're not, the same thing with immigrants. If we don't want to have, like, this is why the Democrats and the what would be the bipartisan bill, border bill that Biden was pushing forward. Arguably, the only reason he didn't introduce that in the first year of his presidency was because of activist pushback on our side of the aisle. Was this belief that any talk about the border plays into the racism of the people who are seizing the issue. And because they might feed on it, we can't deal with the reality part of it because it will give them fuel and further that maybe they were right about something like that. So the fear that it might make these people feel right in what they're doing and drive them towards further awful, we didn't deal with gravity, reality, just the normalcy of stuff, just regular order government shit. And if we had actually dealt with it, they wouldn't have been able to even make up this 35 million number and start rounding up people and end up yanking kids out of their parents' hands and deporting a fucking 4-year-old. And that's where I'm like, can we blame them for this? What they're saying? Absolutely. Is Trump responsible for these policies? Absolutely. But where we can change and where we can make sure it doesn't happen again is by not fearing directly talking about these issues so that they can't just seize the gap. Because there's this idea they just spackle the empty spaces with racism and bigotry and bullshit and QAnon and fucking vaccine and flat earth shit. Because we're saying we're not even going to talk about that window at all, because even talking about it is offensive to the conversation. When I would say it is not. I think we have a responsibility because we care to talk deeply about these issues.
That, and when you make these choices to get vaccinated, right? You make choices. You've decided, and your reasons for getting vaccinated can be multiple. You can, I have a chronic health condition. I do this, or I care about not getting other people in my community sick. That should be enough because that's supposed to be our social contract. Okay,
hold on.
with each
wait.
other.
I'm going to pause you there real quick. I'm going to pause you there real quick because that's not the concern point. That's where they fight kind of the verbal part of this. But we all vaccinate our children before they go to school. Before they go to public school, or quite frankly, even private school, which is the part that everybody lies about, fucking Tucker Carlson's of the world and all this shit.
Everybody vaccinates their kids.
But there's no fucking way like a really expensive school is going to let unvaccinated kids into the thing. So it's all with the homeschool crowd. And then people who lie or fake their vaccine paperwork, which happens all the time as well. But it's not because they're, that's a choice they're making, but it's a choice you make for your children. And therefore, there has been this, where I always talk about these gaps in between MAGA and regular Republicans, and it is our responsibility to shove a crowbar in there and wiggle it back and forth. One of the areas that they find a gap in this is that it isn't just about my body, my choice. The state is telling me my kid needs these vaccines to go to public school. And public school is required, and therefore the state is making me inject something into my kids. And that is enough of a paranoid starting line that all you have to do is have Alex Jones or somebody fire a shot in the air and everybody's off. It's a race to the dipshittiest, dumbest, most extraordinarily, crazy plan. And again, this boils into, if they can get a chip into you with a vaccine, Trump sat for a 4-hour monoclonal antibody treatment with bags of liquids going into his fucking body.
If you have one of these, you shouldn't be worried about a microchip in a vaccine, okay? That's come on.
Well, no, but you could throw that out a window. You can have a burner. You can do it. Again, it is still different.
It's about not enabling these stupid conspiracies. It's about calling those out because they're dangerous, because we you and I, thinking, feeling humans, don't want anyone to die because of Donald Trump. Not anyone who
Right.
voted for him, not anyone who didn't. And we definitely did not sign up for a MAGA mass suicide. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue. And I'm grateful. I live in a blue state. We are part of the West Coast Health Alliance here in
Mm-hmm.
Oregon. And I have my COVID and flu shots are scheduled for October 1st. So I that is my choice, my decision. I care about my community's health. I care about my personal health. And so
Mm-hmm.
I take those steps to make sure that I'm not going to get anyone else sick if I'm a little under the weather. COVID, also getting the COVID shot. I got COVID after I came back from the DNC. If I had not been vaccinated and boosted regularly, that COVID could have really done some damage to me. Instead, I just was really tired for about a week, you know? And so there are advantages. And again, there are choices that we make because we know that they're the right thing to do just as a human being. And then there are choices that we make where we're like, okay, and maybe this isn't the greatest, but I understand that this is important to do. So we do it. So, be
Mm-hmm.
nice to people, be courteous and whatever else. I also think that the timing of this announcement about the acetaminophen and the autism to scare people is coming exactly at the same time that we just found out Trump accidentally uh, posted on Truth Social a text that he meant to send to Pam Bondi. Did you see
Oh,
that?
his yeah, yeah. Well,
Where he
his
was like,
little note to
uh,
her. Yeah. Right.
about going after our enemies. Why haven't we gotten our enemies yet? Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
Hillary Clinton was like, this would be like if Richard Nixon tweeted about Watergate instead of hiding it. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's multiple things that are more important than this story, uh, because this story is bullshit and manufactured for fear. The Epstein Files letter story should be a big deal, and Donald
Mm-hmm.
Trump putting out this hit on his enemies thing. Those should be the biggest stories that we're talking about.
Well, I'll
Those
tell
are
you,
what we should be
yes, and I
pushing
would
the
argue
media to
that
talk
one
about.
of the yes, but also the I would argue the autism stuff is not about the reality of the science or even them trying to bury this. This is yet another situation where Trump is lighting a match and throwing it right at MAGA's feet, because the
Yeah,
reality is this is not what they were promised. This goes to a series of like this whole promises made, promises kept shit that he's throwing out there.
which is Joe
It
Biden, by the way.
Right, but the look at all the things. Like, again, we're gonna have these mass deportations, hundreds of thousands of people rounded up, buses. We're gonna have planes flying out all the time, and there just aren't enough people to even pull that off. And then when he starts to round
Nope.
people up, he gets on the bad side of his buddies in big agribusiness and his buddies in hospitality, which is where most of the folks work. And the other area they work is in home construction, single family dwellings, as a matter of fact, and that's what keeps the price of those things
Mhm.
down. When you've got interest rates high, the cost of production of the house, you actually need more low income workers working on houses to make the price palatable, because if you have 2% interest rates on a home loan, then you can have like regular order Americans in unions building houses, because it evens the price out. The
Mhm.
price isn't going to change. It's not going to go down, but it'll be the same. It'll just be less in interest and more in the actual house. But right now, since interest rates are so high, the cost of making the house has to be low. So you're going to bring in more under the table workers. Otherwise, you won't be able to afford it.
Right.
And Pulte, our house was made by a company called America West, and they do all these houses in
Mhm.
the big expansion in Vegas. And they started out as Pulte, as one of Pulte, and then he was bought out in this area by that. Pulte is the actual,
Mhm.
like, I want to say interior secretary, but he's not. He's like the housing and human, like the
HUD.
housing, the
He's the
HUD
HUD
secretary.
guy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And he
Yeah.
builds houses for a living. That's his whole thing. That's why Trump gave him the job, because this is his thing. It's like giving the head of BlackRock the fucking job. But the key is right. Ultimately, that guy's not going to help bring the cost of housing down. There's no impetus for him to do it. So, but you remove these workers,
No, of
and
course
suddenly the
not.
cost of making a house goes up, and the cost of buying a house has not gone down, because interest rates aren't going to go down. Even if you could afford it, unless you're BlackRock, you're not getting the 3% loan. You're getting 5% more than likely, and it's still more. So
Mhm.
that's a promise sitting on. Okay, the immigrants can't be wiped away, because that would make food prices and housing prices go up and all that kind of shit. And his buddies in these businesses don't want it to happen. So he can't do these
Right.
giant. They were promised huge busloads of people, and they're not. They're like, remember the planes that they kept showing that showed basically children that had come across alone,
Yeah.
and like Catholic Charities was placing them with families, and they would fly the kids in the middle of the night so people wouldn't attack them, but they were
Yep.
children. They
Yep.
were, and
That
they
was
think
awful.
yeah, and they had to do it at night so that these people wouldn't track these kids to the houses they were being placed in and torment them. Okay, they think
Mm.
there's going to be they think those planes were going every hour on the hour, 24 hours a day, or from midnight to 6 a.m.
No.
all night long. They think this. I understand this. Maggots believe this. They believe tens of that. They're flying them over the border.
They
That's
believe a
why.
lot of bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
But that also means that they believe it is just as easy to put those people back on the plane and fly them back. And that's what Donald Trump should be doing right now. That's what they think it was going to do. That's what he promised he was going to do. And he's not, because you can't.
No.
Because it was a fantasy to start with that they were coming this way. You can't send back people who weren't fucking here. And so that's another failure. And they're getting livid about this. This is why his numbers are going down. And here we come with this autism linked to acetaminophen, which even if it is true, is not what they were promised. They were promised to not have to vaccinate their kids. Now, do they give a shit about vaccines ultimately, and do they think they cause autism? I think there's a chunk of the fucking Jenny McCarthy's of the world that believe that and are stuck on that, and it's fine. Whatever. But the vast majority of them don't think vaccines cause autism. They just think the government's using one of these needles to put a chip in my kid. That's the crazier part. It doesn't matter what the fucking needle is. And so they don't want the vaccines, even if you go, guys, it's not vaccines, it's acetaminophen. They're going to go, yeah, that's not what I was worried about. It's the needle in my kid's arm that they're going to chip him with. And then now they sound like a fucking lunatic, even more so than blaming vaccine for something their kid doesn't even have. I'm telling you, the reason this is an important story and why he's got two stories right now. Epstein and not Epstein. And that's what he's trying to get everybody to focus on, anything that's not Epstein. The problem is,
well, good luck with that.
They're all the
it's
same.
It's not going away.
They're all the same kind of lie. They're all the same lie. It's like I promised it would be easy and quick and cheap, and I'd do it fast, and everybody else was stupid, and you're being lied to, and I can fix it immediately, and it'll be it won't cost us anything, and you'll be so happy, and we're also going to be rich at the same time, golden era. And then each time they tee up one of these fucking things, including this today.
Yep.
Even if they actually found the cause of autism, maggots are going to lose their fucking minds that it isn't vaccines. They didn't send. I think we should just,
just sit back and let them watch them freak out.
Yes, you will. It's good. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I didn't consider that part of it. Just because I was focused on that's ludicrous and you're hurting the American people intentionally, and this is also a distraction from Epstein. So, but the fact that it's going to fracture MAGA even more than the Charlie Kirk story is great for us.
Yep.
That's great for us. Let's take advantage of that.
Did you hear Elon Musk's quote? Did you hear what Elon Musk said?
Which one? He was on a tear all weekend, so I don't know which one. He said
when he was at the Kirk Memorial. He was backstage at the Kirk Memorial, and he said, "If we don't hang together, we will surely hang separately. Let us unite." Like, whoa!
What does that mean?
It's a quote. It's a quote from the the founding fathers about who wrote the Constitution. He's borrowing from that. But the idea is that you're a revolutionary that's bringing down the entire system. If we don't hang together, we'll hang separately. Meaning, they'll hang us at the Hague for what we're doing if we don't protect each other's flanks. Because he knows what he's engaged in is fucked up.
Of course. I mean, he helped Trump steal this election, and that's why we're in this situation. And they both told us so repeatedly. And it frustrates me that Democrats never fought that, not even verbally fought it. Right? They didn't, bad enough they never demanded a recount, but they never pushed back. And they were confessing the night before the inauguration. And there was never any pushback. But the other things that Elon was saying a lot of crazy shit at that. He was like, this messaging that they went too far. They have pushed us. They did this.
Mm-hmm.
They is Tyler Robinson. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to use a weird like if your pronoun is they, put it for Tyler Robinson. We did not do this.
Right.
And he, Elon Musk, using his social media platform to push their false
Yeah.
agenda doesn't help us. That's a lot of pronouns. His own daughter, who is transgender and beautiful and brilliant and amazing, was talking about the dangerous, the way they use language and all of that. And she said the easiest thing for her was transitioning. It's harder now because of the way that people treat her, the way people talk about the transgender community, and her own father is guilty of leading that hateful
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And so, and I even, when Charlie was first shot, before, like, literally on the 10th, it was like, it won't matter what we say about this. Elon will not allow that to be the prevailing conversation. This narrative, let's just wait and see who it was before we start blaming and having feelings about it. He didn't do that. He was like, liberals, and they're doing it, and they. He's doing the us versus they, right? Us
Mm-hmm.
versus them. That's not help. That doesn't help. That, and he doesn't he's so strung out on ketamine and his money. He has no concept of the day-to-day realities of regular people and what he does and how it impacts them, and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
care because he's so far removed from the reality that the rest of us live in. He's
Yeah.
insulated from
Well,
reality in so many
he already
different
was,
ways.
because he's a second generation rich kid and all that other
Right.
shit. But
Right.
on top of that, I would argue it's getting even worse as his brain turns to tapioca.
Well,
We're
both of them
almost
have that.
yeah,
Right.
we're almost
So
at the
what do
end of
you
the
think
hour, and I want to remind
do you think
everybody.
he's
By the
afraid of
way,
getting I'm sorry.
that's all right. I want to remind
I just
everybody the Tara Show, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Check it out on their
big
Substack.
week. Big week on the Tara Show. We have Malcolm Nance with us tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And then Thursday, my Senator Ron Wyden will be rejoining us. And he will be updating us on the Senate Finance Committee's investigation into the Epstein files and other things. So, yes.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you think Elon is worried about consequences for what he's done and who would provide those consequences.
Uh huh.
Because if he
Yeah.
thinks they're gonna hang, do you think the Hague is really coming for him? I'm like, I don't
No,
see any
no,
evidence.
no, no, no. He means that euphemistically, and he's a self-involved dickhead
Uh,
who
I okay.
they always puff these things up. But what I will say is that they do want to create this kind of idea that that Tyler Robinson is exemplary of a violent form of left-wing extremism that's that they have to fear, and therefore that justifies any action they take. Now, there was
Right.
people on our side of the aisle that were pushing the whole, words or violence idea for a
Mhm.
good long while, because dealing with what was effectively hate speech and the like, and it got a huge
Yeah.
pushback in a bunch of areas because the only response to an act of violence towards you is an act of physical self-defense, and so when language like that seeks to justify physical responses to words. And
Mhm.
that's something we always have to push back against, because whichever way it ratchets up, the people that get hurt are always the people sort of on the front lines of life. This is where
Yeah.
assholes like go shoot up the Cincinnati FBI office because they don't like what the FBI is doing, to show the FBI they mean business, when it was the Florida FBI that got a warrant legally through, to go into Mar-a-Lago. And who gets killed? The fucking
Mhm.
receptionist, the person who's standing in the front, right? That's what happens when people go, violence is justified in response to words. That's
Mhm.
arguably where Tyler Robinson's beliefs came from in this regard, that you can respond to hate with
Right.
violence. And the
No.
problem with allowing that kind of conversation to go on, or justifying it, is that it allows what's effectively on the right preemptive strikes. And that's where their
Yeah.
thinking is at right now. That's why they're saying 500 liberal, talkers need to be rounded up or whatever. They need to take out 500 liberal talkers because of Charlie Kirk, because of losing, like it's a game of fucking
No.
Risk. Right, I know that, but
No.
what I'm
No.
saying,
Yeah, I
that's
know.
why words aren't violence, and why there is a difference, and why you have to make that distinction, and why you don't give them that ground, because they will be all too happy to use it. And
Correct. And the First Amendment protects us all equally.
yep.
It protects what Charlie Kirk says, it protects what we say. And remember, everybody, you're not helpless, you're not hopeless. You have all of us here, but we are also back in the streets on October 18th for the next No Kings march, and it is happening in all 50 states
Mm-hmm.
with a focus on protecting our First Amendment rights along with everything else. I'm emceeing the Portland march. They asked me to MC after doing 2
Excellent.
speeches at the last 2. Thank you. We're not hiding. We're not getting being silenced, and no one is taking away our constitutional rights on our watch. We're not going to. I mean, we are not going to let them take away our First Amendment rights. We're going to keep fighting for those because that is what makes us Americans. And I don't. You never have to agree with anybody. You are not required to agree with one other person if you don't want to, but you have to allow them to say the things that
Mm-hmm.
you don't agree with so that you can say the things that are important to you. First
Right.
Amendment is there as long as you're not inciting violence and you're not calling for anyone to be hurt.
Yep.
Your First Amendment right is it's your currency, right? As a human being in this country, we are all afforded that equality. And the
Mm-hmm.
second you take it away from one person, you're taking it away from all of us. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we have to fight for our First Amendment rights along with our other constitutional rights. Get in the streets. You have to show this administration and the rest of the country that you mean business when you say we are not going to accept what this illegitimate regime is doing, whether it's ignoring the Epstein files, lying to the American people, keeping us unsafe, making us less secure globally, or whatever it is. You have a reason for being here to watch us today. That is the reason you're in the streets on October 18th.
Right.
That is the reason why you share the show and you come back over and over again. Because, like a wise woman once said, we are stronger together. Yep.
And I will, and I'm going to end this in a way that will probably infuriate you and everybody else. Is that
Great.
um, I will say that while I didn't like, I don't like Turning Points USA. I fight back against everything that they say. I think that one of the ways that it really like I said, if there's a gap, you shove a crowbar in there and you wiggle it back and forth, because you don't allow a
Mhm.
unified front that doesn't exist. When
Right.
Charlie Kirk's wife, whose husband was shot and killed less than a week and a half ago, at
Mhm.
this thing, said she forgives the shooter, um,
Right.
she gets credit for that, especially after
Yeah.
when Donald Trump comes out and says the exact opposite, effectively
I wouldn't do that.
spits in her
Who
face
right. And
in
so
that.
who does MAGA follow now? If
Well,
they
that's the
truly
thing.
cared about Charlie Kirk, they would follow her and demand Epstein files be released because he stood up there and said,
That's
I
right.
don't agree with Charlie.
That's right.
Well, then
That's
fuck
right.
you. Fuck you. The fully
Mm-hmm.
unredacted Epstein files should be released,
Mm-hmm.
and you deserve, Donald Trump deserves every misery that will be visited upon him
Mm-hmm.
going forward. Every misery. He deserves it. He has brought it all upon
Yep.
himself, the ultimate predator asking for it. So
Mm-hmm.
remember that as we
And
go
so
forth in this week. We are
anybody,
here for
any
you.
victim,
See you.
yeah, any victim of a crime who could find their way to
No.
that, I appreciate, and there's all the more reason to take them at face value on that. If they're going to fail
Right?
or be fraudulent about it or lie or pull it back later on, that's on them. But when the idea is initially
Yeah.
put forward, it is the higher path. It should be respected, and when you do, you make it more of a responsibility for them to live up to it than if you go bullshit from day one, because they'll go, why am I forgiving these people, and
Right.
blah, 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 and they'll get plenty. And that's why Trump felt comfortable saying what he said, which is antithetical to
Of
at
course.
least, if not what
Such an
Charlie Kirk
ingrate.
actually taught, at least what he said he was teaching. And at a certain point, that's got to mean something when it
Right.
comes to legacy, especially if you passed away. And his family and everybody around him
Right.
has to recognize that, because if you want to make a saint out of him, if you want to make him as a character rise above his mortal coil, what it requires is that higher standard. And if Donald Trump is going to chip away at
You
the
have to
base of
rise
it,
with him.
right? If
Mhm.
Donald Trump is going to like piss all over his legacy to your face, and undermine that belief system, you have a choice to make. You have a fork in the road. Do you follow the teachings of
Yep.
Jesus that, however flawed, Charlie Kirk said he believed and said he was trying to follow? Or do you follow Donald Trump, the pussy-grabbing, adjudicated rapist who was Jeffrey Epstein's wingman for 25 fucking years? The choice is yours, MAGA.
I think
And
that's a valid question.
mhm,
Correct. Are you going to honor Charlie Kirk's final wish, or are you going to be a fucking hypocrite?
that's right.
That's my new tactic now.
Mhm,
Everybody's like, "Oh, liberals, we're coming for you." I'm like, "Are you gonna honor Charlie's final wish
yeah,
and demand a full release of the Epstein files?
right.
Because you're not a fucking hypocrite, right?"
Mhm,
So let's just watch them honor Charlie's legacy now. You've had your big dog and pony show. You put on the red meat thing for the audience, like you threw them their red meat, and everybody stood up. That guy who was carrying the giant wooden cross across the place. I mean, very performative. You did all your cult praying and your hands up and your eyes closed. You did all of that. What are you going to live now?
right.
It's a new day today. Erica Kirk has 2 children to raise by herself. What are you doing? Are you following her path? Or are you following Trump's? That's a question to ask anyone who trolls you. That's a great question for the media to ask elected
Mhm.
MAGA Republicans.
One of the things you like when you, and appreciate it. And don't forget to follow Tara on all of her socials and whatnot. Tara Dublin rocks. Of course, pick up her book. But one of the things is that if
Yeah.
somebody puts up a symbol that they say they live up to, that's supposed to be a symbol of goodness and fairness and kindness and all these things, especially if it's one of
Mhm.
of Jesus, and what it genuinely stands for in that religion, then hold them to it. It is their standard. They have clung to it, so therefore
Let's do
they
it.
have to live up to it. So,
That's right.
yeah.
Put up or shut up. Put
Hmm.
up or shut up. Show me you're
Hmm.
not a giant hypocrite. You have been using Charlie Kirk's name to boost your
Hmm.
Nancy Mace has been like, "Oh my god, she made
Yep.
this all about her a million times over." All right, Nancy, let's see you advocate for the full release of the Epstein files since you stood with the survivors and you made that whole thing about you, and then you immediately went and stood with Trump. So now you get to pick a lane. Do you want to be girlfriends with Erica, or do you want Daddy Trump to love you? Because
Hmm.
one path is going to be better for you than the other. We'll see where they
Yep.
turn out. We'll see where we are in a week, Hal.
That's right. Anyways, have a
All
great
right,
week, and
everybody,
I'll
be
talk to
good
you
to each
later.
other.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Be
Thank you.
good.
Love you. Be good.
Bye. There she goes, ladies and gentlemen, the Tara Dublin, who does indeed rock.